Hey everyone, this is a tutorial on setting up Unreal 4 engine retargeting, Unreal Engine 4 retargeting for character animations. So basically, what I want to do is I want to be able to take a character that I have and I want to replace the character that is in the default Unreal Engine template. So basically, we've got this third-person guy here, and if I jump in and play, you see he's got an animation system. He's got a number of animations that actually work on him right now. And the first thing that I really just want to do is I want to be able to make my character play instead of him using the animations that are already in there. So this tutorial is not including a whole lot about animation. It's mainly about how to get a new character into the engine and get it functioning correctly. So I'm going to show you two different ways of doing this. One of them is to utilize the rig out of the engine itself and actually use that to create a quick but functional rig for getting the animation to come in. And this is kind of like a modding technique, so it's a little bit less functional for a full production workflow. But I want to make sure that you guys have a good idea of how everything works. So we'll go over that, and then I'll go over the process of setting up a character who has a different skeleton and setting that up to retarget as well. So there's a couple things before we get started that I wanted to comment on. The first thing is if I go to my mannequin character mesh, there's this SK skeleton asset. And this is the persona window, which is where you edit and view animation details. And you can do orbiting by holding down Alt and left clicking. You can hold Alt and right click to zoom in and out. Those are usually the most useful tools, but all of the same viewport options work. But basically, so you've got three main tabs here. You've got the skeleton, the mesh, and the animation tab. The skeleton tab is focused primarily on just using the bone rotations and all of that kind of stuff. So you can actually make alterations to the pose and placement of the model. You can do that actually in the other tabs as well, but it defaults to only showing certain tabs in the right viewport. So you could, in the mesh tab, you could go to skeleton and you could still bring that up, but it defaults to keeping those kind of partitioned out. So basically, I would look at the skeleton, mesh, and animation tabs here at the top right as being like a filtering system rather than actually different windows, because all of these things can kind of be brought up and shared between them. So like, for example, I could bring up the anim notifies window here, which would also be over here. And yeah, so basically, just to give you an idea of how that all works. But the goal here is that we want to make sure that a character with similar hierarchy of bones can run with the same animations that we're using for this character. And there's a few steps to go about doing that. But one thing that's worth noting as a broad kind of concept understanding for how Unreal Engine, but also pretty much any game engine, will run animations, is that the first and most important thing to observe is that there are specific bone orientations and there are specific bone names. So if you click on any one of these bones in the hierarchy, you'll see all the bones that continue off of it. You'll see, if you zoom in closer, you'll see the actual joint orientations. So for example, this one has the X facing down this axis, the Z is moving out from kind of like the elbow, and then the Y is kind of the flex joint. And then if you look at the other arm, then you'll see it's kind of a mirrored version of that, where mostly it will work similarly, but because joint orientations can't be identical on both sides. You have to decide which value becomes positive and which value becomes negative. But this is something that's extremely important to understand, especially since we're going to extract this character rig out for using as a rig. So every time you click on a bone, you can see the bone name displayed. You also see the bone names in the hierarchy. And for this method, the bone names and rotations are extremely important for making sure that everything will come in smoothly and correctly. So, okay, so let's just go ahead and jump in. So what we want to do is we want to export this character to be used in the in Maya to use as a base for setting up our other character. And there's a few things that we can do with that. So what I want to do is I want to go to right-click, select Asset Actions, and select Export. And then I have a folder on my desktop that I'm using for this, so I'm going to just use the SK skeleton. Okay, and then I have my character in Maya, and my character has obviously very, very different proportions, but will probably be somewhat similar in size. So let's see, we're going to go to File, Import. And then I'm going to go to my character modding and my SK mannequin, and I'm going to import that in. Okay, so now we can see that we have our mannequin character here. And there's a few ways that if you're just doing this as kind of a simple process of like modding, and you want to make sure that you have a character that's roughly the same size as the character that goes into Unreal Engine, you may want to take your character model and actually scale it to match. So in our game, we have a different proportional scale, so this stuff gets handled a little bit differently. But everything's a little bit exaggerated. And so if I scale this so that it's roughly got the character head in a similar position, what I can do is I can look at something as kind of an anchor point. So if I turn on X-ray and move into the side view, and actually maybe turn on X-ray here too, I can take a look at where all these bones are. I can turn on X-ray joints, and that will be in the shading menu. It'll be easier to see where these bones should be placed. And so my first assumption is that it's going to be easier for me to get this character to match if I just use something as an initial anchor to make sure that everything is kind of dependent on that. So I can go ahead and I could settle on this, but I think that I want to use the neck, and I'll treat the neck as actually I think probably the pelvis is a good one to use as a guideline, because that's one of the most dependent ones. So you notice that the pelvis is somewhat in the middle of the character's pelvis in the SK mannequin. So we want to try to get this this character so it's roughly the same position there. So let me go ahead and just kind of scale that just a little bit. I think that should be okay.